Welcome to another G4 Guitar teacher presentation. My name is David Hart, and what I'm going to do in this 30-minute hangout is talk about what we call the 3 biggest mistakes made by G4 Guitar teachers, new teachers who join G4 Guitar. And some of these mistakes are short-term mistakes, some of them are long-term mistakes, but they're costly mistakes, and the kind of mistakes that will end up really holding you back and stopping you from progressing and succeeding in your business. Now, because G4 has been running for a few years now as a global network, I have been able to look at how the teachers are progressing, and I would say, very, very high success rate generally, but I can see that there's certain teachers that are struggling, that are having the problems. I can see exactly what those problems are, and I can pretty well say it always relates back to something that they haven't followed through the business plan, whatever. So the idea here is to go through those 3 biggest mistakes. So I'll just get started here. So the first, just before I start on the 3, just as a kind of a quick introduction, the thing is that as a new guitar teacher or with G4, it can feel overwhelming. You feel like you've got a lot to learn, and you've got to work through all the teaching, go through the marketing, the sales training, all these components that do take a fair bit of effort and energy and time. And some teachers who are working other jobs and working full time don't have a lot of time to spend on spending the time on this. So what you want to do is prioritize. So this is the first thing. The first biggest mistake they make is their priorities are out of order. The way they go about doing things and the things that they're concerned about and the things that they focus on are not the things that are going to bring the best result and get you to the goal. And remember, the goal is what counts. This is what's really important. The first goal of any teacher of G4 is to get to 100 students. That's the goal. Now you might say, well, what about the quality of our students? What, the quality of our teaching? Is it just about numbers? The reality is it's not just about numbers. Yes, we want to get all those things as well, but you need to have a very clear, tangible goal, because the quality of your teaching is very hard to measure. We can't sort of say, what a good teacher is or whether you're a good teacher. What we do know is that students who are happy, who are actually getting somewhere on the program, will tend to stick around. It doesn't mean that every student will stick around just because you're a great teacher, and vice versa. It doesn't mean just because you've got a lot of students that you're necessarily a good teacher. You could be a very good marketing and salesperson. But having this as a bit of an indicator does really help. So thinking of that goal. So here are the things about setting your priorities. First of all, invest 80% of your time, this is the 80-20, 80% of your time into marketing. That's where the investment needs to be made. And the teachers on thinking about the teaching, thinking about small problems, rather than investing their time into the marketing, you will learn what you need to know about teaching as the students come, as you'll have plenty of time. There'll be plenty of that, especially if you don't have a lot of students, so you'll have plenty of time to learn. But the more students that you get, the quicker you're going to learn. Even if you lose some of those students through not understanding what you should be doing or lack of confidence, etc. But you will learn much faster by getting more and more students into what you're doing. So that's the first thing, is invest 80% of your time into marketing. And the thing that I want to do here is just play it out. Imagine, for instance, that you go and do 1,000 flyers, and from that 1,000 flyers, this is just one example, you get 1 new student. Now you might think that one student, they pay you, say, $100, and you go, okay, well, that one student's only worth $100. I just went and worked a whole bunch of hours to get that one student. That's kind of a very short-term view. Think more long-term. That one student, obviously, we know these numbers from our averages, but for an average teacher, that one student's worth $2,000, which is a pretty good investment. If it takes you 4 hours to deliver 1,000 flyers, you're now earning $500 an hour. But that's just the beginning, because that one student, if treated right, will stay with you for at least 2 years, maybe longer. And if you're a good teacher, they'll probably be with you for 5 years. So, but we know on average that a student, a satisfied good student, which is this average student who stays for at least 2 years, will refer at least 1 student per year. That's just an average. So if they're referring 1 student per year, then that means that you've got this exponential growth. So 1 student refers 2 more students, which ends up 3 students. Those 2 students also refer 2 students each, which is another 4 students, and on it goes. And but this is long term. When you look over a 10-year period, this is what you see. You see this tree growing. And if you want to see examples, look at very successful companies who've looked after their customers in whatever way that they want to do it. But look at big name companies that really looked after their customers. And you will see this exponential growth. Coke didn't start. And I don't drink Coke, I don't even like Coke, so I'm not endorsing Coke here at all. But as a company, they really looked after their clients by delivering their products and keeping them available and whatever, being consistent with the taste of their drink and so forth. So by thinking in those terms, what you do is rather than thinking short term about, I just spent half a day doing flyers and nobody called, instead think about the long-term value of that flyer and how it averages out over time. It doesn't matter the short term. In 10 years, you're going to be a very wealthy person if you keep on this path. I think it was Warren Buffett, who was at one stage the wealthiest man in the world, said, go and find a very high mountain and with a steep slope and roll a snowball off it. And basically what he's saying is if you've got a mountain high enough and you've got a starting point, then over time it builds and builds and builds, and by the time it gets to halfway down, you've caused an avalanche. And that's the way that business tends to work. You start off with small seeds and then it grows. So focus on the marketing. Small details. Again, this is the first point that I'm making. These are kind of smaller points within the point. So the first point is priorities are out of order. The second point here is small details. They worry too much about insignificant or low probability events. So, for example, how do I teach an 80-year-old dyslexic with a hearing disability? Or how do I group that student with say a 14-year-old Chinese student who's a prodigy? These are just very unusual, extreme circumstances, and these are the kind of things that a lot of teachers get bogged down in. Looking at each individual student and the unique circumstances. What you want to focus on, again, is the 80-20. Focus on the broader, where the market is and where you're going to be able to succeed the most and do the best. Be the best at where the market is. So instead of trying to, imagine a restaurant, and I often use this example, imagine a restaurant where someone comes in and says, I don't like the food that you're cooking, and you have a sign up that says, order whatever you want. And you go in there and you go, well, I like sushi, and your friend says, I want pizza. You're probably not going to be very good at making sushi and probably not very good at making pizza. If you focus on one of those things, sushi or pizza, then the odds are you can become very good at one or the other. But trying to be good at lots of things, different things, and trying to please everyone, it just doesn't work. So, but again, if you're going to make some rare exotic dish that nobody knows or even is interested in, then you probably won't sell many. So don't focus on those. Focus on what most people like, and be very good at it. Be the best at what most people like. And that's where you'll really do well. So don't get caught up in these small details. The other thing here, as far as priorities is concerned, is teachers are often focused too much on today and the short term. They get caught up. I see it in the emotional area a lot, where they sort of get a bit worried about a particular student. The student doesn't turn up, or they have a problem with a parent, or whatever it is, and they get caught up emotionally in that particular instance. It's only one very small today instance, so don't worry about it. Move on from that. Okay, so that's priorities out of order. The second biggest mistake that I see teachers make is they don't communicate enough. So, in other words, they try and solve all their problems themselves. It's one of the things, I call it Googling. Go to Google and ask it a question. Often what people say, friends and family will say to me, how do I do this or how do I do that? And my first question is, did you Google it? And they will say, well, no. Well, why not? Well, I didn't know you could. Well, try and ask the question. And the idea is that if they ask the question of something like Google, Google often has the answer. In other words, go looking for it. But to sort of put this in context, they're trying to solve the problem themselves, and they often get bogged down on problems. How do I do this? How do I do this? And they might try and, read the manual or try and do different things where they can simply just ask someone who already knows. And within G4, what this means is that as a G4 guitar teacher, I'm here. I've had many, many years of experience. Plus, we've got a group of guys, a network who have had lots of experience, and most of them have probably had that problem, the very problem that you're facing. So ask them. Just put the question up. Don't be afraid to ask the question. So communicate by asking more questions. I actually see a direct relationship between those teachers who are successful and those who communicate. I can almost predict it from the beginning, within the first month, as to how successful, how quickly that particular teacher is going to be by how much they communicate. If they ask a lot of questions early, I know this person is on a good track because they're not making the mistakes. They're actually learning from someone else's mistakes, which are primarily mine, but they could also be someone else in the group. So the other thing here is communication is a two-way street. Giving back information helps me to gather overall data. So it's not just that it's for you, it's that you're giving back to me. When I know what's going on with you, then I can sort of look at it overall. I can ask questions like, wow, this is a problem that's coming up for several different teachers. Is the industry changing? Is there a trend here? Is there something that I need to be aware of? Do we have the right solution for this problem? Whereas if you're holding back that data, holding back that information, then you're actually holding back everybody and yourself, of course. So the more you guys sort of feed back your experience, then the more we communicate, then the better we're all going to do, the faster that we're going to get to where we need to get. And of course, the most important thing about communication is it saves you time. The biggest complaint I hear from the G4 teachers is that they don't have enough time. Probably everybody today says, I don't have enough time. I just wish I had another couple of hours every day. But the reality is it's not about time. It's about the way you manage and manage your time by being using communication, by going directly to people who have the answers, who can help you quickly. It will actually save you a lot of time, so you're not sweating over a particular problem. All right, so that's the second. I think the third point here, the third biggest thing, which I've left for last because I believe it's the most important and the one that you would really need to take in, and that is that they don't change. They come to G4 with the idea, okay, here I am, I'm going to succeed at this, I'm going to do something different, but actually they don't change. They keep doing the same things that they've been doing, which haven't actually led to success in the past. So in order to change, and I went through this, I went through a period, I've been through it a couple of times where I've had to really change the way that I do things against my, almost better nature or my instinct. I've had to actually change the way that I think and act. And so this is a really strong point, and I'll sort of go into more detail. So what we've got here is the first thing is the job mindset. A lot of people, most of us were brought up with the job mindset, so we don't have this business entrepreneur mindset. So what is the job mindset? The job mindset says things like, I'm paid by the hour. So when a student comes, you are thinking, I just spent half an hour with this student, therefore I deserve to get paid for that time. So it's a very short-term job mindset, whereas an entrepreneurial mindset looks at it differently and says, I'm building a business here. This one student could be worth another 100 students in referrals. This one student could bring me thousands or millions of dollars even. It's possible. Okay, this one student could be extremely, extremely valuable. That's the way an entrepreneur sees the opportunity. So think about whether you're looking at the clock, whether you're thinking about the money, are you going the extra mile, are you doing whatever it takes to help each and every student succeed regardless of the money. You've got a business plan, and you've got a kind of a business system, if you like, that will make you more than comfortable. And as you see, as we get to the entrepreneurial, once you have that entrepreneurial mindset, you can grow and grow and grow it. So you can have 10 locations, 20, 100 if you like. It doesn't stop. But what happens is that if you don't get it right from the beginning, if you don't change that mindset from a job mindset into an entrepreneurial mindset, it's going to hold you back. And that's really one of the biggest things that I see. And just to really bring this home, there's a story, and this is what kind of changed me years ago. There's a story that I read in a book, which I'll share with you. There were basically two guys who took on the job in this town of supplying water. And so the first guy said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the river every day, grab a couple of big buckets of water and take them up and fill up the local tank, and then people can get the water out of there. So he did this, and the other guy wasn't doing anything. He just seemed to have, you know, disappeared. And so this guy had really it all to himself. He thought, well, this is great. You know, I've got the business all to myself. And so he started, as he obviously had the whole town to himself, he hired some people to help him bring the buckets of water up, and then he started to put his rates up because he knew there was no one else in town. So he got expensive, but they had no choice. And then the other guy turned back up. This was probably a year later, with a bunch of engineers, and they got to work, and within no time at all, they built a pipeline from the river up to the town, and they supplied the town with lots of cheap water, put the guy with the buckets out of business. And so the real moral to this story was one guy thought long term, and the other guy was thinking short term. Bucket, get the money. Where the other guy was thinking, build the pipeline, and then I don't have to do anything, and I get money from here on in. And not only was he earning more money and made more money than the other guy, put the other guy to business, but he also gave the town cheaper water. He made it possible. So think outside that job mindset. Just one last thing on the job mindset is that the job mindset says the harder I work, the more I should be paid. So we think in terms of the effort and energy, and we look at it and go, oh, I've worked so hard this week, I've been out doing flyers, I spent 20 hours doing flyers, I've spent 10 hours teaching, I've been doing all this admin, blah, 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 I've worked 40 hours, and what did I get? I got a couple $100. Forget it, I'm going back to my job. That's the job mindset. The entrepreneur looks at that and goes, wow, look at this investment I've made for the future. And they also look at value. So they're not thinking about the time or how hard they work, they think about the value they give to each person. So it's not a matter of working harder, it's a matter of giving value, and that people will pay you based on value. Okay, so the other thing here is they don't take, and this is where they don't change, they actually don't take action on the business plan. Instead, what they do is always have, they're kind of expecting different results. So when they're not following the business plan and expecting different results, as we know, that's kind of the definition of insanity. We keep doing the same thing, but expecting different results. You've got to do something that you didn't do before. You've got to step out of your comfort zone. And I've had examples where teachers, after 6 months, they go, look, I'm really better off than I was before. And I say, well, let's have a look at your situation. And the first thing I say, number one, is they haven't communicated, but the second thing is that they're not doing anything on the plan. They're not doing anything different. They're still doing the same things they were doing when they joined. And my explanation is quite clear. There's the problem, is that you're not doing anything on the plan. You're just doing the same thing again and again. But you expect somehow that it's going to produce different results. You've got to do it differently if you want to get those new results. And really the final point that I want to make on this, that they don't change, is they actually make excuses for not changing. Things like, which I've heard a bit, I have a house mortgage, I can't leave my job, I'm stuck, I'm not like you, Dave, I wasn't born with lots of money and privilege, and I wasn't, I hate to say it, but I wasn't born in that position either. And the house mortgage, and here's something that sometimes people don't like to hear, but I'm going to be very, very upfront with you. A house mortgage is a choice. You make the choice to buy the house. You make the deal with the bank to give the bank a certain amount of your money each month. That's your choice, that's your deal. Now you might think, well, perhaps if I didn't have that, if I was renting somewhere and I would still be paying the same amount of money and I still wouldn't be in any better situation. The truth is that most people who buy a property, they pay more for that property for a start, but what happens is that the property is more than they really need to be living in. When you really want to build a business and you don't have any money, let's say you're absolutely penniless, and I've been there a couple of times, I know what it's like, what happens is you do whatever you have to reduce your expenses down to the point where you're spending very little and you can invest every dollar into growing your business. But if you need to go and rely on a job, a 40-hour-a-week job, to then pay for your house mortgage, which leaves you very little time to actually build a business, then you can't expect to grow. It's just not going to happen. What needs to happen is you need to step right out of the picture, step right back and go, is this is this, where am I going to be in 5 years if I keep doing what I'm doing? If I keep making excuses, and as one person said, an excuse is just a promise that I'm going to repeat the behavior. So where are you going to be if you keep doing and keep making the excuses? If you're going to have the house mortgage, don't make the excuse of the house mortgage. Have the house mortgage, great, do it, but don't use it as an excuse to say that you don't have time because you've got to work a full-time job to pay for the house mortgage. What you need to do instead is go, all right, I got the house mortgage, or I'm working the job, but that's not going to compromise me building my business. What I'm going to do is, with the extra 20 hours I can find on the weekends and the evenings, whatever it takes, I'm going to just work ridiculous hours to make it happen because I've made this choice that I want the house mortgage. If you don't want to work the ridiculous hours, then you need to take away the house mortgage and you need to do it differently, or you need to get creative. And I can help you with that as well. I can show you how to be very creative and get a lot more flyers out a lot faster, and without having to work a lot of hours. So there's no end to the ideas that I can share with you as to how to do this. And this is where the excuse comes in. It's not an excuse. These aren't excuses. If you can use excuses like, I've got personal dramas, I've got, I'm broke, I have a family that I've got to look after and spend time with, and all these things are excuses, and once you face that, then you won't have a problem. Okay, so the three things, just let me go over them again. Number one is not investing enough time in marketing. So go back to your marketing, 80% on your marketing, write it on your wall, look at your schedule and decide whether or not you're doing that. I promise you, if you spend 80% of your time on marketing, your problems will be over. You'll have plenty of students, the cash flow will be coming in, and away you'll go. Now, the second thing is they don't communicate enough. If you have problems, speak up, ask questions, talk about it. And the third thing is they don't change. They get stuck in their ways. Okay, so that's the presentation done. I'm just going to switch over here to the guys and just we're going to talk about it, any of those points. And welcome to ask questions. Ben, so that'll make it easy. You've got two Bens. Do either of you have a question? Ben Messenger, you got a question?
No, just the last one really stuck with me, David. The one I've heard in the gym that I'm at, and the reason that it worked so well for me is a lot of the guys, it's a big poster on the wall, and it's just excuses or results. You can't have both.
Love it.
And it sounds cheesy when you're in the gym. It helps, but it's bang on. It works. It's right for life, for business. It's
Exactly. Hit you in the face every time you're at the gym. Am I going to make an excuse? Oh, today I don't feel so well. Yeah, it really, because we're all pretty well equal, I mean, there are some people who have some different things, but even people with disabilities or with financial hardship or problems, mental health problems. There's still remarkable examples of people who get past all that stuff. One thing that's really interesting, a thing that I read about a while back, was that dyslexics are actually something like 4 times more likely to be successful in business.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys have heard that, but people like Richard Branson are probably a good example for you guys in the UK. Any reasons, any clues why? Why are dyslexics so much more likely to be successful?
More likely to check their work again?
Perhaps, yeah. Yep. It's not the reason they give, but I'm sure that comes into it.
I'm sure it's a resilience thing, Dave. The fact that they will have been told, maybe not my generation, but certainly a previous generation would have been told, you're stupid, you're an idiot, it wasn't understood.
Exactly. It's part of it is, and you're actually on it there, and I'll give you the exact answer they give, but what you're saying is really the same thing, in that they're, because of their circumstances and their challenge, they learn to actually deal with problems. But the answer they give is that many dyslexics get through, quite a few of them actually end up going through uni and getting degrees, and which is surprising. But what happens is that they're very good at delegating. In nearly every case, dyslexics have to get other people to read for them. They have to get other people to, assist with their work and help them to understand things. They cannot do it by themselves. And this happens to a lot of people with disabilities, is that they learn to rely on other people, and they learn how to gather other people to support and help them, whereas we able-bodied people try and do everything ourselves. And so because of that talent, they're very good at delegating and getting other people. I don't know if you guys know, but Richard Branson can't even read a balance sheet. He doesn't know much about the finances at all in business. So. Okay, so anything, Ben, do you have a question at all? Ben Al-Qaidi? No?
Don't think so. I didn't hear the beginning of it, just joined late, but that summary was very helpful, and I think priorities has been my main problem. It's a mix between the self-conscious perfectionism side and then the objective, this does need to be a bit better before I can actually think of it as a working. But mostly I'm thinking about that video that I want to put on the website, because listening to all the online marketing hangouts that we've had reminds me that the website's the hub and you're paying for clicks, so every time someone comes to the website, it should be as good as possible if you want to get your most value per click that you've paid for. But then obviously you started your website with the Facebook ads without a video on it, still worked for you.
Yeah. Have you read the book The Lean Startup yet?
I've listened to it, and it was just too much for me. If I listen to it again, I might understand it, but it's very... When you're reading it, you could pause and you can reread sections. When I'm listening to it when I'm out flying, big sections of it just washed over me, and I thought, when he comes back to summarise that, I'll understand it. And I think next time it'll be a lot better.
Okay, so with the Lean Startup, the recent, maybe try reading the E-Myth first. Have you read that one?
I haven't. Maybe that would give me a good... Because it was all the business terms that just threw me off.
Yeah, the E-Myth will definitely be a better start for you, because E-Myth is kind of a story. It's more easy listening, and it really gets you in with the story. So listen to that first, and then go back to the Lean Startup. And the Lean Startup is what the E-Myth does is it sort of leads you through the fact that you need to build your business with systems, which is great. It uses the McDonald's kind of example a lot. But when you go to the Lean Startup, it's all about testing, minimum viable product, MVP. So it's putting something out there and just testing it and see what happens. And that's what you need to do, is that you need to not be, when you're making a video, because you can put a lot of effort into making your video and you think it's great, and then you put it up there and I say, no, it's not working, or better still, the public say it's not right. And you've just spent, 3 months developing this super duper video. So what you want to do is just put something up there, even if you're the only one who sees it, even if I'm the only one besides you that sees it. Do you know what I mean? Just do it. Just get the ball rolling.
Just trying to flip that switch in your head.
Yeah, exactly. I know this because I used to try and do it with songwriting. I used to try and write perfect songs, and I didn't realise, years ago, and I wish I did, in my teens, that your early songs generally suck. So just that's how it is. You're not going to write great songs out of the gate. So I still think I've got a long way to go. But what's that?
You can definitely identify with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't feel I'm there. I still don't feel I've got any worthy of putting out there. But some people like my stuff, and that's okay. But I know that the more I do it, the better I get at it, and that's really what it's about. Emma, did you want to chime in here? We've got you as a special guest today.
No, I'm happy to listen.
You're happy listening? Well, I've got you, because you're here, we've got to get something out of you. The 3 points I put up here, and I know you just tuned in, so I'll just recap on them, but the 3 points that I put up is, 3 biggest mistakes. So one, that they don't invest enough time into marketing, which we could also tie into selling and marketing, really. To me, there's not a lot of difference between the two. They go hand in hand. The second thing is they don't communicate enough. And the third thing is that they don't change. They stay the way they are. So have you got any comments you can share on any of those?
No, I agree with all of them. I think teaching can be quite lonely, I think that's one amazing thing that we have going for us if we use what's available, is at those times that we do get frustrated, it's okay to admit that we're frustrated and say, hey, just someone talk me through it, someone talk me past it, because it's only usually a temporary mindset, and sometimes just talking to someone that's been there and done that is enough to just, you know, get us out of our 5 minutes of wallowing. You touched already on the systemizing things, and I actually spoke with the guys, I can't remember who I was talking to, but we talked about having time set aside for everything. So, as you know, and we've spoken about breaking your day up into half-hour chunks, 15-minute chunks, 5-minute chunks if you need to, and actually putting on your calendar what you're doing in each of those 5-minute, 15-minute chunks.
Yeah, excellent. So,
and actually, something that I heard this morning, I think, on Sunrise, they were talking about the working day and distractions, and they said every time you get distracted from whatever it is that you're doing by an email, Facebook, or phone call, it actually takes you 15 minutes to get your mind back to that same point that you were at when you got interrupted. So they were talking about the importance of not checking your emails whenever the email sign pops up or whenever the Facebook message sign pops up. Just have allocated times for checking your emails. And I think that's something that we're all guilty of, is just checking.
Can you hang on a sec, Emma? I just got to check my email. Can you just wait one second?
No, sorry.
No. Exactly.
See ya.
You know, switching is a problem. You know, I mean, I do it sometimes as well. I don't think anyone here can sort of say they're 100% free of switching, but it is. I'd read some statistic on that recently as well, where you know, people switch can switch in an hour something like 15 to 20 times in an hour from one task to another, and in that hour they've actually got only about 15 minutes of productivity out of that hour. As a result of the switching from one task to another. Yeah. So yeah, that's great. So just to get one more comment. Ben, did you want to say something? Is your mic's off? Ben Messenger, did you?
Sorry, no, I dropped out for a second there. Yeah, no, the thing that rang with me was you called it the MVF, the most viable product, or was it minimum?
Minimum viable product, yep, that's it.
Have you got that from Seth Godin?
It's actually, no, it originally comes from Toyota.
Right.
Toyota originally had this, you know, everything evolves, and, you know, it's hard to say who invented what. Because things evolved. Maybe the terminology was, you know, the minimum viable product certainly wouldn't have been what the Japanese were saying, because they're not English speaking, but they would have had a term that, and that's really where it came from. This whole concept of the minimum viable product, but if you go back to sort of Japan and what was going on there. There's a guy called Deming who was an American, and in America, his way of doing business and his philosophy wasn't accepted. The American philosophy, or the Western philosophy, was that we'll make the product and then we'll convince you through marketing to buy it.
Whereas what you can sell.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we can sell anything. You know, the madmen and all that sort of stuff. You know, we'll convince anybody to buy anything. Whereas the Japanese took the opposite approach. We'll watch you, see what you need, and then we'll make the product based on what you need. And that's what, you know, they talk about the early sort of Japanese went to Disneyland and watched people getting in and out of their cars trying to find car parts and all the rest of it, and that's where they came up with the idea they need smaller cars, you know, and they need a boot only the size to be able to put their prams in and whatever else, and all these little things that they did, and that's why Toyota ended up, you know, amongst other car companies, killing the American market, because the car manufacturers in America and in the UK as well were all kind of too focused on, you know, we've got the product and we're going to sell it to you. But see, because Deming wasn't kind of approved in what was going on in America, because his way of thinking was sort of opposite of what was going on. Then he went to Japan, and in Japan, amongst businessmen, especially the older business leaders, he's a hero. They just think of him like a god almost. And really, what he did was he changed the whole way that business was done around the world. But it started from Japan, and now you've got countries like Korea. Samsung, what they do is that they send, not just Samsung, but most of the companies, but Samsung are the prime one, from Korea, South Korea, they send their people to go and live in the other countries for years sometimes, to really get to know people, not just to know how they think and behave and act, but to get to know them, to actually become part of that community. And then they bring that information back to Samsung, so they can then, and Samsung just got one of the most incredible stories in terms of growth as a company, and it's largely because they followed this same model that Japan developed. Yeah. So minimum viable product. Sorry, Ben, did you want to carry on with that?
No, it's just something to add, that it's what Seth Godin was getting at in one of his podcasts. He had a series of podcasts that I listened to recently, and he's talking about the fairground, when you've got your ducks and you've got your rifle range and the ducks, and he's saying the American way of thinking was to get all your ducks in a row and then say, right, I've got all my ducks, let's go. He said the way you need to think is, what are you going to do with just one duck?
Yeah.
Same philosophy, isn't it? So, but that really that rung true with me big time. It was like, what are you going to do with it? You know, that's all you've got. You've got one duck. What are you going to do? You can wait for a year till you're bankrupt. You might have all the ducks, but no one's bought them. Let's see what you can do with one duck first.
Exactly, and that's a great example, because it's like, if you can't sell one duck, or you can't do something with one duck, then don't worry about the row of ducks, because you can't even do it with one. And I bring that back to teaching. Guitar. Just don't worry about all the other students. Just get this student in front of you, right? Help them, because there'll be more coming. They will come. Don't worry if you get this one right. But if you don't get this one right, then there probably won't be so many eager to line up. And that's what happens. People are attracted, naturally move towards success. And so if you're a student, then it's more likely to happen. So, one, and I'll finish up in a second, but one last kind of example while we're on that, which is a great topic, is a little bit different. But in Japan, the guys from, I think it was Chrysler at the time, went to Japan to see what was going on in the Japanese factories as to why they were so efficient and why things were going so well there, and really knocking them out of business. And what happened with the kind of, in America, Chrysler and Ford and those companies, generally what would happen is they had all these spare parts. So as the cars came down the production line, they would look for faulty parts and replace them. And when they went to Japan and watched Toyota and so forth doing it there, they saw no spare parts. And then what would happen is the car would come down and there'd be a faulty part or something, and they'd stop the whole factory, shut it down, work out what the part was and get it made, and then shut the factory for 3 days and come back. And the guys from America go, this is insane. You guys are just, why do you waste all that productivity time? It's 3 days wasted while you go off and make this part. And their reply was, because we don't want anything to go wrong, and we know what one mistake causes. So we're going to get that one mistake right this time, so it never happens again. And that's the kind of philosophy. And so really what was happening in the Japanese production lines is things just weren't going wrong. Very rarely were things going wrong, and that's why they were able to really cut down. They didn't have to keep all these spare parts. They didn't have to have the extra labor, and for people there inspecting all these things, it was just much more efficient. Get it right first time, and then you don't have to worry about it. So. Let's okay. Any final questions? I'm going to end the hangout now, but just hang on there for 1 second, because if you've got any other questions not on this topic, I'm happy to answer them. So just finishing up now.